In this video, I'd like to show you how to configure an eligibility rule for compensation to exclude employees who have had 10 or more consecutive days of leave of absence during the year. So first, let's take a look at the rule here under Rule Details. What we can see is that we're using a function from Manage Business Rule called Get Absence in Days for Period with Threshold. And the threshold is set to 10 days, 10 calendar days. The start date and the end date of the fiscal year are January 1st and December 31st. And what is really important when you configure this rule, you need to have the counting method set to count only days above threshold. If you do not choose this one, it will not work. Finally, let's look at the time types here. We have unpaid leave. It's a specific time type for the UK. My employee in this demo environment is Alison Mahoney, and she is in the UK, which is why this particular time type is showing, but you could add an unlimited number of time types. So let's get started and look at Alison Mahoney's time off and to prepare a test case for us to test this rule. So let's leave here and go to search for Alison Mahoney. And go straight to her time off profile here. The entries I added for this first part of testing the rule are in the past, so you can find them by clicking on Administer Time. And here we can see the two entries that I submitted and I had approved. So let's take a second to look at them, because understanding these entries will be key in understanding the way the compensation eligibility rule works. So let's take a screenshot and go over what the system shows us versus what the rule is going to actually take into account to work. Here we have submitted two entries, one in August and one in June, and the system in SuccessFactors screens, in SuccessFactors UI, is showing us here, I will highlight this, is showing us taken 7 days and taken 6 days. But if you look closer at if you look at the start date and end date, in reality, it starts on August 1st, this first entry, and it ends on August 9, which means it lasted for 9 days. And this one, same thing, from June 1st to June 8 days. So what the system is showing you in this column taken, which is very misleading and took me a long time to figure out when I was testing, is the system is showing you actual work days in this column. But in reality, the rule that we configure can only use these dates. If your customer requirements is to use work days, you may run into issues, and I don't think it is doable as far as I know. So here we're really going to look at these two entries here. So we saw in the compensation eligibility rule that our threshold is set to 10 days. And so what we want the system to do is to exclude an employee from the compensation worksheet or from variable pay, from the records of variable pay if you're configuring variable pay, if the employee has had more than 10 consecutive days of leave of absence during the year. Here we can see that in these two cases, it is not the case. We have a first one from August 1st to August 9, so that's 9 days. We have a second one from June 1st to June 8, that's 8 days. So what we're expecting the system to do is to allow Alison Mahoney to be on the worksheet, which we're going to check right away. And then we will edit this and we will check that by changing one of the two entries to be greater than 10 days, she gets excluded from the worksheets. So let's do that and apply the eligibility rule for our template. It was pretty fast. So the way we're going to check whether it worked or not, whether with the entries that Allison has in time off, she was kept, because that's what we're expecting here, is by going to Manage Users, Define Planners, and downloading the report, Export Ineligible Users. So this CSV export tells us who has been made eligible after you apply the rule. So if I open this, we can see that it's empty, which means that nobody is being excluded based in the system based on the rule we've designed. Now let's do the second part of testing, which consists in editing one of the 2 time off records that Allison has, and having it approved, and then coming back here to rerun our eligibility rule. So if I go to Allison's profile, and I click on time off, administer time, and I click on the first one here, I click on edit, and instead of having 9 days from the 1st to the 9th, I'm going to set it to 11 days. So technically, in terms of work days, it's 9 days, but for the rule that we've built, it's 11 days, which takes this record over the the threshold of 10 days. So submit. So in a demo environment, once you submit a time off request, it always gets approved. It's going to be approved by different people. So the way you can skip that is by doing, as a super admin, doing manage workflow requests. Manage workflow requests, and then you can search for Allison. And here's the pending one that we just submitted. So the first thing you want to do is you want to remove some of the approving steps that are pre-designed in demo environment. So you want to click on delete approver and remove approver. And now you only have one more approval step. And what you want to do is set it to be you instead of what the system has decided it would be based on the configuration. So you want to click on change approvers. And instead of Allison's manager, Michael Pittman, just send it to yourself and save some time. Change. So now we are going to go to home, because that's where we can find the tab, approve requests. If it doesn't show here, which happened to me while I was preparing this demo, you can always find it by going to view pending, view my pending requests. Here it's on the home page, so you just click on it and then approve. And then you always want to check. It's good to check on Allison's record that it has been approved before you rerun the eligibility rule. So you come back here, time off, administer time, and you make sure that it has been approved. Approved 9 days, but now it's from the 1st to the 11th versus previously from the 1st to the 9th. And so now we're expecting Allison to be excluded from the compensation worksheets. So we're going to go and rerun our eligibility rule. And it finished. So we can go to define planners, export ineligible users. And in this CSV, Allison is now excluded. So let's take a second here. So she is excluded because if we go back here, because if we go back here, what happened is she can have an unlimited of numbers of unpaid leave during the year, but as long as she has one that's greater than 10 calendar days, she gets excluded, and this is the case here. So I made sure for this example to have 2 entries for this with the same time type which in this case I believe is, you can take a look at my screenshot, but I believe it's unpaid leave, GBR underscore unpaid, but you could list an unlimited number of time types. And I made sure to have two because I had a question this morning that said, what about you have two entries of 6 days each? Is the system going to be able to correctly exclude, even though 6 plus 6 equals 12 and the threshold is at 10? And this is the answer here that we just tested. So it works fine. It has to be consecutive days, and it's working here. Thank you.